So much media, so little time. Who keeps track of it all? That would be me. This is Bob Andelman, and this is the Mr. Media Interview, broadcast and recorded live on blogtalkradio.com from the new, I'm a little tired, from the new media and baseball capital of the world, St. Petersburg, Florida. And this is the part where the music usually plays. Okay. So I'll just keep talking. I think it's going to be one of those days, folks. Well, welcome to another edition of Mr. Media's College of Musical Knowledge. Today, I'll test your familiarity with the roots of punk rock music with a very special guest, photographer Bob Gruen. Bob just published a new collection of his classic photos, this time capturing the wild times of the original New York punk band, the New York Dolls, which once upon a time starred David Johansen, Johnny Thunders, Billy Murcia, and Arthur Kane. The book, with its shocking pink cover, is titled simply New York Dolls Photographs. If you know anything about the Dolls, you'll want this book on your coffee table. And it'll be a great bookend for other Gruen collections, including John Lennon, the New York Years, and The Clash. Bob Gruen's pretty busy these days. Next week, on September 18th, he'll attend the opening of an exhibition of his photos at the List Gallery, 140 Yorkville Avenue in Toronto. And from October 11th through November 2, Gruen will have his first solo exhibition in Los Angeles at the Morrison Hotel Gallery, 7517 West Sunset Boulevard, near the Guitar Center. Bob will attend the opening on October 11th to sign copies of New York Dolls photographs. I can't seem to click anything right now. Gosh. Bob, bear with me one second. I know you're there. I'm going to have to restart the switchboard. And folks, be patient for 1 second here. It is just that kind of day, you know. While I do this, let me read you something from the introduction to the book as I wait for Firefox to recycle itself. First of all, this is an incredible book. The preface is from Bob Gruen, and it says, "My life has always been a series of one thing leading to another. Working on a magazine story in 1972, I met John Lennon and Yoko Ono and their backing band at the time, Elephant's Memory. Elephant's Memory was managed by Steve Lieber and David Krebs, pretty familiar names to anyone who follows this kind of thing. Tony Machine, one of their assistants, suggested I go to see another band they managed, the New York Dolls. One evening, after hanging out with the Elephants at the Hells Angels headquarters on East 3rd Street, I stopped at the nearby Mercer Arts Center to see the band Tony had been talking about. I was shocked at the gender-bending scene around them, but soon came to enjoy the circus of wild characters they attracted. It's hard to express how exciting the scene was, loose, free, chaotic, and wild. And I knew I wanted to be part of it. The next time I saw them, I started taking pictures and became very involved with the band. When I met them, they'd been playing for several months. Their original drummer, Billy Murcia, had died and been replaced by Jerry Nolan. It was all still very much of a downtown underground scene. But over the next 2 years, they became one of the most talked about bands in the world. I like bands that are visually exciting. I believe in show business, and the Dolls always put on a great show. They were glamorous. Some people didn't get that. They thought they dressed like girls. We're going to talk about that. But they were just guys dressing up, even using makeup, to be better looking so they could get the girls' attention. The Dolls were having fun. The Dolls were about having fun, and it was contagious. The thing about the Dolls was that they made it look easy, like anybody could do it. They were living a decadent life, and I joined right in. But I always knew when to get the photos. Bob Gruen, are you on the phone?
Yes, I am.
I'm very sorry for the problem. I don't know what's going on my end, but I'm delighted to have you on Mr. Media today.
Well, hi, I'm glad to be here.
And I have a bit of a surprise for you here. I have another caller who wants to talk to you.
Oh, really? Okay.
Hi. Is there a caller on this line?
Yes.
It's Legs. I think it is?
Yes.
Legs.
Bob Gruen, Legs McNeil, to join us for the show.
Hi, Legs.
Hey, Bob. How are you?
Let's keep it clean. We're talking to the public.
I know.
Okay.
Legs, I'm so glad you could join us today. Legs has been on the show before, and I asked him if he couldn't join us today and help me with the interview a bit.
Oh, great.
That's because Mr. Media didn't do his homework.
Oh, man. Don't pick on Mr. Media.
Okay. We'll pick on Bob.
Oh, no.
Okay, pick on me. Pick on him. Well, Bob, let me ask you first. You were there pretty much at the beginning of punk, and I wondered, what do you most remember about this?
Shooting Black Oak, Arkansas.
That was where I started. I don't know. I don't really, categorize music as punk or new wave or one thing or another. To me, it's just one day leading into the next. I mean, I saw Bob Dylan. He's kind of a punk, and that kind of led into meeting Ike and Tina Turner, and Ike's kind of a punk. And then I met John Lennon, and he's very much a punk. And it was through the Elephant's Memory, who had the same manager, Lieber and Krebs, that I met the New York Dolls. And so, and it was with David Johansen. We went down to CBGB's. We saw some of the bands there, Patti Smith and Blondie and Ramones and so on. And then I went to England, and I met young kids there who were starting bands. And it wasn't called punk until about 3 or 4 years later. Around 1977, when people started to write about some of this, and it became more and more magazines as people got more and more interested in music, and the magazines used the word punk, but I never, categorized it. It wasn't like one day somebody said, okay, this band is different, this is punk. I mean, there was a time when Elvis Presley played and people said, this is rock and roll, that word had actually come around a couple of years earlier. But and of
course, the punk label had a lot to do with our friend on the other line, Legs McNeil, who was the co-founder of Punk Magazine.
He was the punk.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Bob.
He was the one we all copied. He was the inspiration to be a punk.
Well, Legs,
Bob, why don't you talk about your new book coming out?
Yes, I was going to get to that, the New York Dolls.
Yeah. It's great. I just got it. I just got it in the mail.
Oh, good. Yeah, Amazon.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Barnes & Noble is just getting to the bookstores. It looks like a gift wrap package. It's wrapped in bright pink spandex with bright silver letters, and it's very colorful inside, and it's just really quite a nice package and quite a nice book.
And tell them about Lenny doing Lenny Kay did the
Lenny
interview.
Lenny Kay, the guitar player and producer of the Patti Smith group, and a musician on his own right. But he was there. Like David wanted to do an interview, but he wanted to do it with somebody who had seen the band and, as he said, escaped with all their marbles intact. And Lenny's certainly one of those. He was there, but he's a wonderful, intelligent guy, and he did great interviews with David Johansen and with Sylvain, and he also wrote an introduction. And it's really great seeing the two interviews with David and Syl, kind of explaining the origins and the history and the development of the New York Dolls.
And also
Morrissey. Yeah, Morrissey, the world's biggest Dolls fan. He wrote the afterword. And he was influential in actually helping the Dolls reunite 4 years ago. So the last picture in the book is a picture of the reunion. There's a lot of pictures in between. I traveled around with the Dolls. There's a great long section of the Dolls in Hollywood, probably one of the most colorful times.
And besides the pictures, Bob, there are great quotes provided by
Legs McNeil.
Yeah.
Who interviewed just about everybody worth interviewing in rock and roll. And, for the earlier books he wrote, the great book Please Kill Me, which is kind of the Bible of punk rock. And actually I've seen people carry it around with them like a Bible, and it's all dog-eared, and they read the pages over and over. But from the interviews, Legs collected all different quotes from everybody talking about the New York Dolls, because they were such an inspiration to so many people, from Debbie Harry, we have Joe Strummer quoted in there, Richard Hell, Malcolm McLaren, all kinds of people. All 5 members of the Dolls get to say something in the book. So it's really quite informative, besides just the photographs.
Hey, Bob, that picture of them on St. Mark's Place when they're leaving for Hollywood?
Oh, coming down the stairs?
Yeah, where is that? Is that next to trash?
I think it's right by your old apartment. No,
Really?
Down in the next block, yeah. It's between 1st and 2nd.
Oh, I was between 1st and A.
Or maybe it's 1st and A, I think. But
Really?
Yeah, but it's past 2nd Avenue.
It is.
Either the 1st block or the 2nd block, yeah.
It's a great shot.
Yeah.
I've never seen that one.
Johansson. Well, I like the one with Frenchie and Johansson looking in the mirror. That was
yeah.
Frenchie was the guy who used to dress the dolls.
Yeah.
He used to go to Trash and Vaudeville where they sold clothes by the pound.
And the Late Show.
And the Late Show, yeah.
Are you guys surprised that there continues to be, 30 some years later, so much interest in the dolls? And why do you think that is?
Because nothing new or good is happening now.
Right.
So they keep recycling.
Interesting. And
if there was something great, I think we would both be on it, out there.
There's nothing as wild and different as that, and confrontational and in your face. And it wasn't just the clothes, it was much more the attitude. They were just really real and in the moment and not afraid to say what was on their mind.
What were they like to be around? Now, Bob, I should say, Legs was on the show a couple months ago, and we talked, I think at length, I think it's safe to say, about Please Kill Me, and also Help Me, Legs. I don't have it in front of me. The title of the
Other Hollywood.
The Other Hollywood, which are wonderful books. And I want to make clear, because I had some technical problems at the beginning. Getting the chance to interview Bob was only presented to me about 5 o'clock yesterday, and the book just got here literally in the last 30 minutes.
Oh.
It's great, isn't it?
It is. It's a beautiful book. It's a tremendous piece of work. And so I just want to explain to everyone that I had asked Legs last night if he could come on and help me today, because obviously you guys have known each other a long time, and I'm at a little bit an unusual disadvantage in not having been able to get as prepared as I would like to be.
Well, there is a lot to read in the book as well as all the photos.
I'm curious, but at what point in all this did the two of you get to know each other? Because I know you've been together, you've been friends a long time.
Well, Bob was older, and he was always coming back. He was always at CBGB's in this denim jean jacket, and he had an afro. And you'd always go, "Where have you been?" And he'd go, "I just got off the road with Black Oak, Arkansas, or Kiss, and those were the pictures he sold. And the pictures he took at CBGB's and of the dolls, he really couldn't sell until now.
No commercial potential.
No commercial potential at all.
I haven't heard that phrase in a while, but back then in the 70s, almost all the bands that I knew, everybody said, "Oh, that's no commercial potential." It was a very common phrase for bands like the Blondie or the Ramones or any of the bands that played at CBGB's. They didn't think they would go anywhere.
And I remember Bob working. I'd be backstage, talking to the Ramones or something, and Bob would be there, and he would be very unobtrusive, and he would take the shot, and then he would step back into the scene. He would just, he would just do it very quickly, and with no fanfare or it was amazing. That's why his shots are so candid and revealing.
Well, I don't do a lot of setting up. I try to capture what's going on without intruding or rearranging things.
I think that's real obvious in this book. I mean, the photos, and there are photos of yours that are in Please Kill Me as well, and that really is a common thread, I think, is that people are caught, they're comfortable, they're obviously comfortable with you, so it's not, and whether it's, while they're performing or the backstage shots, when you work, Bob, what is it you're trying to get from people? Are you more candid, because you don't seem to do the setup kind of stuff?
I try to get the feeling of the moment, what's actually going on, but try to relate a bit of the feeling and the experience, so that if people see it, they don't just see what kind of shirt the person's wearing, but they see how they feel and what kind of attitude they're projecting.
Mm-hmm.
Bob, tell that great story about you flying down to Atlanta and seeing the Sex Pistols, because that's a great story.
Oh, yeah. Well, also, I kind of go on the spur of the moment. In the 70s, I didn't have a girlfriend per se. that I was committed to, so I didn't really have to stay in one place. So the Sex Pistols, I met Malcolm McLaren when he was working with the New York Dolls a bit in New York, and when I went to England, he was the only phone number I had to call, and he brought me down to a place called Club Louise, and I met the Sex Pistols and the Clash and a lot of the people that became the punk music, the punk rock scene in England. And when the Sex Pistols came to America, they started off in Atlanta, and I went down there. Basically, I thought I was just going for the first night. I wasn't planning to go on the tour or anything. I didn't really have the money for that, I just didn't think I'd do it. So I just went, just clothes I was wearing and my camera, planning to come back the next morning. And after the show, which was pretty chaotic, I was in the parking lot. Malcolm and the band were getting on the bus to go across America, and I said, "Well, so long, Malcolm. Have a great time. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. I wish I could come along with you, but I know you're going to have a good time." And he kind of took that and he said, "Well, I'm sorry you can't come, Bob, but we only have 12 people allowed on the bus, and there's the band and Sophie and the guards and me, and well, that only adds up to 11, Bob. Why don't you get on the bus?" And I was like, "What?" And the guy next to me said, "Well, I'll come, Malcolm. I'd like to go." And Malcolm said, "Sorry, but Bob asked first." And I was like, I did? I didn't know I was really asking. I kind of wished him well. But it looked like a good opportunity, and I jumped on the bus, and I woke up 10 days later in San Francisco. It was quite a wild ride.
And I want to point out to people that the story of that can be found in great detail in Please Kill Me. As the Legs asked that question, I started thinking, wait a minute, I know that story. But Legs, let me ask you about Bob. What is it about him for such an enduring period of time that the musicians have been so comfortable with him, and that he's stayed in the scene or a scene for so long? Why
Bob was always cool. Bob was like one of the musicians, so it was very, very. He knew everybody. He was very nice. He was very low key. He was very funny. He was also very charming. He's a great guy. So you want to
drive people around, and David Johansen in the book says, for instance, I'd call up and say, "Hey, I've got a chicken. You want to come over for dinner?" And we'd have some drinks. We'd have chicken. We'd go out for the evening drinking. It was a whole social scene, and I was part of it. Good cook.
And Bob, have you stuck mostly with music photography over the years? Have you gone into other things at times?
Well, I generally feel I can take pictures of just about anything, but my friends are musicians and artists, and one thing always just led to the other, where I would meet managers of a band, and they would manage other bands, or they'd introduce me to a record company that had other musicians they needed photographed. Occasionally I did a couple of fashion things. Steven Sprouse I did a few things for, and even some corporate jobs once in a while when they'd come up. But basically I was involved with music just because those were the people that called me up, and I always operated kind of first come, first served. Like whoever called me up and offered me some money to go somewhere, I went and did it. And when it was on my own, I was making my own decisions, about going to CBs and shooting these bands that nobody was interested in. I was interested in it. I had fun there, and I'm always taking pictures of things that I enjoy.
But you loved rock and roll, Bob.
Yeah, that's why I was in the bar every night. In bands. I'll do that. I still do that today. Not that I seek out new bands, but I seek out interesting scenes and interesting people, and I like to be entertained. I don't really like TV. I think that's my problem. Is I don't like to stay home and watch TV. It bores the hell out of me. And I like to see live events. I like to go places and really be there in person.
Is it? I don't know how old you are. But
let me just interrupt. Let me give a great example of that. Bob just went to Ike Turner's funeral, and he also went to Bo Diddley's, right, Bob? Oh,
well, they were very interesting, very musical, and those were two people that actually I was very involved with. Ike Turner really helped me get my start in the business. He was very, very supportive. Took me on the road in the early days. My first album cover was for Ike and Tina Turner, and I just felt a need to be there and to share that moment with the other friends he had.
What about Bo Diddley?
And the same thing with Bo, but he wasn't supportive in that. But to me, Bo Diddley was the founder of rock and roll. I mean, you don't hear a song without a Bo Diddley beat. And And he was a great guy and a very real, present guy, and I liked him a lot. And I've been involved with him since '72, and I became friends with him with the Elephant's Memory.
Yeah.
And I visited his house once. I got to know him best when he was opening for the Clash, and he came on the bus for a couple of weeks with the Clash, and he'd stay up all night telling jokes, and we were hanging out. And again, I just felt the need to be there and pay respect. I think it was mostly respect that I went to Bo Diddley's funeral.
Can I interject here, because I think this is great?
Of course.
Bob took that. Of course, everyone knows that Bob took that very famous shot of John Lennon in the New York City T-shirt, which they've kind of stolen. And Bob actually gave me, because I sell them on the street, and Bob buys them and gives them to friends instead of initiating lawsuits and things. Why don't you talk a little bit about that, Bob?
Well, yeah, the first time I saw the New York City T-shirt, some guys made it. It was kind of a homemade shirt, and they would sell it literally on the sidewalk in Times Square. And I like New York. I grew up here. I was born here. And I'm proud to be from New York. And it's a good thing to travel around the world and say, I'm from New York. Actually, if you say New York 3 times a day, you get breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I always want to meet people from New York and talk to people from New York. So I used to wear the shirt, and one time when I was on my way to visit John in the studio, I saw the guy selling it, and I bought one for him, just as a gift. And it was a year later that we were taking pictures on his rooftop for an album cover, and the whole skyline of the city was all around us, and I said, do you still have that New York T-shirt I gave you? This would be a great time to wear it with the skyline here. And he knew right where it was, which surprised me, because he had been out in Los Angeles having a famous Lost Weekend.
Drinking
and carrying on, and through a lot of chaos, and living in several different places. And so the fact that he knew right where the shirt was, I was kind of impressed that he had kept it and kept track of it. And he went and put it on, and we took the photos, which we thought were just going to be for publicity for the album, and it's turned out to be one of the most well-known pictures of one of the most well-known people in the world.
Well, there's two. I mean, I think there's, in my mind anyway, and you guys have more expertise than me in this, but I think there's 2 iconic John Lennon photos that have nothing to do with the Beatles. One is the photo of him wrapped around Yoko near the end, and then the photo of him in the New York City T-shirt. I mean, you see that, and it's like everyone knows those 2 pictures.
I like to think they also know the picture of John Lennon at the Statue of Liberty. Which
says keep off grass on it.
Yeah, well, I'm very proud of that because it's something that I thought up rather than... Because most of my photos, like I said earlier, I just go to a place and I take whatever's happening. But in that case, John Lennon was under a deportation order. The Nixon government, the U.S. government, was trying to throw John Lennon out of the country. His crime... that they felt, I mean, the reason they were trying to throw him out was because he was talking about peace in a time of war. But the excuse was that he had been arrested once for having some marijuana in his apartment in New York, in London. And I thought that if we took some pictures at the Statue of Liberty, it would really dramatize the case, that we should be inviting people, we should be welcoming, incredible artists, world-class artists like John Lennon should be welcomed to America, not thrown out. And he liked the idea, he agreed with me. And then doing it was actually kind of simple. We just took the ferry out there. I don't get a lot of paperwork and permissions in advance. We just went out there like 2 tourists, and we walked around in front of the statue. And the hard part was lining up a 6-foot or so person with a gigantic statue and getting the proportions right. And I don't usually like to have words in my pictures, especially distracting words, billboards or signs that have nothing to do with it. But in this case, there was a sign in the background that said "Keep off grass."
It didn't say keep off the grass. It said keep off grass.
No, it doesn't even say the grass. It doesn't relate to where it is. It relates to grass in general. And so did John's immigration case. And so I thought that was a good sign that it says keep off grass. He's giving the peace sign, promising I'll be good. And in fact, after we took it, not all that many magazines would publish it. I think they were afraid of the political side of the case against John Lennon. And it wasn't until after he died in the 80s that people really started publishing it, because I think they relate to that picture, because they relate to John Lennon as a symbol of personal freedom.
There's a great movie out where Bob's in it called The People versus John.
The U.S. versus John Lennon.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
It's about the whole case where the government was afraid that John would be a leader for a peace movement, and they felt that was
against Nixon.
Yeah. and the Nixon administration they started wiretapping him and following him, and actually following all of us. And
they were following you too?
Kind of case. Yeah, I got followed home a couple of times. It was kind of weird. I mean, leaving the studio at 4 o'clock in the morning up in Midtown, and I live in kind of an obscure block in the West Village here in Manhattan, and a car had followed me all the way home at 4:30 in the morning, and I became aware he was following me when he was making all the turns to get into this kind of meatpacking district down here. And so I jumped out of my car and I saw two guys. They looked like G-men with, the raincoats and fedoras pulled down over their hats. And they kind of looked at me and drove quickly away. And at the time, it made absolutely no sense. Some, government-looking guys would follow me and then drive away. But later, when we found out more about the case against John Lennon and that the government really was following him, it seemed to make sense.
Bob, you did the Lennon book, the New York.
John Lennon, the New York years, which is the same publisher as the Dolls book, Harry Abrams.
And I kind of wondered, in doing that book, you probably recalled everything that you remembered about John, but having had the experience of him in a different way than most people, and since the book has come out, have any other stories occurred to you that you wish you had told at the time?
Oh, from time to time I remember moments or something, but I really did sum up the experience of what it was like to be John Lennon's friend, and how he changed a lot from when we first met in the 70s when we were all drinking a lot of tequila and cognac and really carrying on. And after he way overdid it in Los Angeles, he came back and he cleaned up and he stopped drinking and he became more aware of his health and more aware of his diet. And became a responsible father to his son, and spending time at home taking care of him. And so I really relate the journey and that he went on and what he learned from it, or what I observed that he learned from it.
Let me. I've been enjoying having you to ourselves, basically, but we do have the capacity to take calls, and there are a couple guys in the live web chat that accompanies us. If you've got a question for Bob Gruen, whose new book is New York Dolls, Photographs, and he's also published a collection, John Lennon, The New York Years, and a book of photos of The Clash, simply titled The Clash. We'd love to have you call in, 646-595-3135. Also, if you're on the web, which you would have to be if you're listening to us, you can check out some of Bob's work at bobgruen, GRUEN.com. That's where you can also see the details of Bob's upcoming exhibitions. Now, in Toronto and in Los Angeles, will you have New York Dolls photos on display?
Yes, we're going to be featuring some pictures of the dolls, and I'll be signing books at the openings in Toronto on Thursday night next week, September 18th, and in Los Angeles at the Marsden Hotel Gallery on October 11th.
And, I was just thinking, jumping around a little bit, but turnabout is fair play. I asked Legs about you. Anything you want to tell us about Legs?
Oh, you know what? You should tell the story about when we were working on the first book, on the boat.
Oh, that was funny. Yeah, actually, Legs and I have known each other, quite more than 30 years now.
Yeah.
And been through a lot of really great fun times together. Legs was on the Sex Pistols tour. Actually, he helped me out a little right there at the end of the tour. But yeah, when we started doing interviews, and I wasn't really as experienced as I am now. In 1984, when I first got the idea to write a book about my John Lennon experiences, Legs and I did an interview, and we thought we'd get away from it all. And his sister had a boat up in Connecticut. And we thought we'd go out and we'd spend the night on the boat with a couple of six-packs of beer and just tape record, and talk about it for a long time. And that's pretty much what we did. Although after like a couple of tapes, and a lot of beers, Legs got up to take a leak over the side of the boat and then just kind of lost it and followed right over the side of the boat. It's actually on the tape where Legs takes a break for a second, we turn the tape off, and then there's a big splash as Legs fell in the water.
Wow.
And it really helped me collect my thoughts, though, and get direction for the interview together. Because Legs really likes to know all the details and all the scandalous side of the lifestyle and what goes on with the sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And I was actually trying to do a more spiritual book at the time, and reading the interview, I kind of got a good idea of all the things I didn't want to talk about. And in that sense, it really helped me come up with a good sense of direction of what I did want to talk about. And Legs and I, like I say, we've known each other a long time, and since then we've talked a lot about it and working on this Dolls book and having lots of conversations since. We've been talking about now going forward and doing a kind of biography, which will be a much more spiritual side. We're trying to come up with a good spiritual title.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out a good title.
Because it's not really religious. We're just talking about reality and as opposed to fantasy and gossip. To try to put things into a much more real.
It's kind of like whatever gets you through the night,
Yeah.
Gee, it's a shame that Please Kill Me is already taken.
Yeah, but I
was thinking of The World According to Bob, but what's the word?
Oh man. Hey, Bob, do you have a favorite photo in this book? In the new book?
Not really one particular favorite. Because to me, I can hear these photos. I remember them. They're all great moments, and whenever I see any of them, I remember the moment, and so I don't really relate to any one picture all the time that really sums it up. Although there are, I picked all 200 because they're all great. I'd stand behind any one of them.
Hey, Bob, were you there?
Which is your favorite photo? But I have so many that I like. I don't have a specific favorite.
Bob, were you there in London at the old Grey Whistle test?
What, with the Dolls?
Yeah.
No, I never traveled to Europe with the Dolls.
Uh-huh.
I went to Los Angeles with them. And
is that where that's from? That famous clip you see of them.
Oh, they're
in the book.
Huh?
What was that? Don Kirshner's Rock?
No, the pictures of that I made the album cover from. Yeah. That's from the real Don Steele show in Los Angeles.
Oh, it is.
Which had a really lively set and some great spinning lights and we got some great shots there. And also because they were in Hollywood, they really got dolled up.
Yeah. There's great pictures of them outside of. There's that great picture of Johnny Thunders outside of Hollywood High School. And then
that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, and then there's one of
the girls to come out.
David,
I've got that in front of me. Yeah,
David and Johnny in heels outside of Fredericks of Hollywood,
sitting on a trash can in front of Fredericks of Hollywood.
Yeah,
and in front of Schwab's Pharmacy. I see that one right in front of me. It's what I think is great about this, and this is the access that you have. That a magazine photographer who's assigned go out and get us a picture of the band. Does not have. You're in these shots. You're on the scene. There's a great picture of the band just kind of unloading the car or the truck, and they're just chatting, and it just you catch them in that moment. And then of course there's this picture of David Johansen, in the All Together. I think maybe he's got a bathing suit on.
He's got a bathing.
It's really. It's just very hard to tell. Tell me about David Johansen. It seems to me, I've never met him. But seems to me must be just a bigger-than-life figure and always probably has been.
Yes. Yeah, he's one of them charismatic kind of people that people are just drawn to, and it's just entertaining on whatever level he does. And he's done all kinds of different, personas in his life, going from the Dolls to, he had a rock band in the later 70s, and then he was...
Buster Poindexter.
The Buster Poindexter, kind of a lounge act, in a tuxedo, and he did that for a long time, and then he's been working more...
Then he was playing Tootie from...
he was on TV.
Yeah, Car 54, Where Are You?
Car 54, Where Are You? I think that's out on DVD, right? It never went to the theaters, but I think it finally came out. And then he's been working as an old blues singer with Hubert Sumlin, who was one of the original old blues people, and David fits right in with that, because I actually... The real David Johansen that I know, I think, is an old blues singer, and inside that New York Dolls, there's like a little old black blues singer. And there's another thing, by the way, the New York Dolls, people talk about the chaos and the excitement and how different and how new, but the music was really very rhythm and blues based, very rootsy in like Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, Bo Diddley, the real roots of the soul of R&B. And I think one reason that the Dolls sometimes get compared to the Rolling Stones is not because of the similar attitude and look, but more because they have the same roots in the real blues-based, early roots of blues.
What can you guys tell us about some of the other members of the band, like Johnny Thunders, for example, who his story is pretty well told in Please Kill Me, but you guys have a little, maybe can you get us a little closer to him?
Johnny was very funny, a real wise ass, and what people don't know is that, A, he was a good cook. Being an Italian, he loved his mom, and he cooked up a great spaghetti and sauce. And one thing that always surprised me about Johnny was that he was very well read, and he was always asking me, "Did you read this book? Did you read that book?" And for a guy who seemed to spend a lot of his time high, he also spent a lot of his time recuperating from that, or just sitting on buses. And instead of just shooting, gossip with guys, he was always reading, and he was always learning about things.
And what about Arthur Kane, for example?
Oh, well, David talks about Arthur quite a bit in the book. Arthur was the tall, silent type. And David says, he wouldn't really say very much in the band meetings, when they were trying to decide what song to do or how to do it or something. He wouldn't have much to say. But when it came down to the crucial decision, Arthur would come out with a couple of sentences, and David said, when you first heard it, you thought he was coming from outer space. And then about 2 hours later, you realize that he really summed up the situation spot on, and just he was kind of an otherworldly person. And David points out that Arthur couldn't breathe and play bass at the same time. And if you see him in the video, he'll be playing, and then he suddenly stops for a second and takes a gulp of breath, and then he keeps playing. And David says that was part of how the Dolls got their unique sound, that it was kind of bouncing along, because the bass would be driving and driving, and then suddenly stop for a second while Arthur grabbed some air and then kept going.
And you
character. And also,
and
when I first met him, I remember I saw the band once, and then I came back at New Year's Eve to the Mercer Arts Center. I brought two of the Elephant's Memory members with me, Stan Bronstein, the sax player, and Rick, the drummer. And they were pretty macho guys. We wore leather and carried buck knives, hung out with the Hells Angels. And we went to see the New York Dolls, and Arthur came over and said hello. I think he had seen me at the earlier show. And he was wearing a yellow sequin girl's bathing suit, shiny girl's tights, engineer boots, but painted bright yellow. And I had some kind of pink chiffon ribbon wrapped around his wrist, and I introduced him, and Arthur had a very high voice, and he was like, "Oh, hello, it's nice to meet you." And he walked away, and Stan turned to me and said, "What the hell was that?" I said, "Well, that's the bass player, Stan. You're going to love this group."
Now, I want to make sure I have a few minutes to ask you about the Clash as well, another band. I mean, I'm a
band that really matters.
Yeah. How different was your experience with the Clash than your experience with the Dolls?
Oh, not all that different, in a sense that they were very real, very grounded, and very intense people who, kind of live in the present and project that very well. I mean, they didn't wear as many clothes from the girls' department as the Dolls. They certainly, took a lot of pride in their appearance. They made a lot of their own clothes. They were very colorful in the clothes that they wore. And they were very political. And one thing that people don't know about the Dolls is their lyrics. The song Trash, I remember when I heard it, and a lot of other people, they thought it related to their girlfriends, because they were talking about their girlfriends as trash. But that's not the truth. The truth is that it's one of the first songs about ecology, where they're talking about trash, pick it up, don't take my life away. And to me, the Clash were the ones that were really very important in the sense of talking about politics and talking about what was really happening in people's lives, what I call social politics. They say the Sex Pistols gave people, the Sex Pistols made people want to scream, but the Clash gave people a reason why. And they were much more a thinking man's group. And, it's too bad, like, the Sex Pistols cursed on TV, and then famously the English press picked up on it, and they said the filth and the fury, and they started talking about the violence and the anger of the punk rock scene. But there really wasn't a lot of violence. There was anger about things not being right and about wanting to make them better. But the punks themselves, were not a violent people. They were people who were just upset about the status quo and wanted to change things.
Kind of like now.
Kind of like now. At the
Except
beginning
there's
of one of my favorite Clash moments is at the beginning of Armageddon Time when, I think it's, or Clampdown, or whichever one, but Joe Strummer kind of goes through this whole little rap, and then he comes out and says, and what are you going to do now? And that's what it's all about. What are you going to do now? Not just complaining, not just wishing, but what are you going to do now? And, I hope people get out and vote, because that's what people need to do now, is make a difference and vote.
I've always been very curious about the Clash.
You heard it here. Get out and vote, kid.
Get out and vote. Do you want to tell them who to vote for?
Well, they know who to vote for.
Well, don't be stupid.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Get out there and vote, and don't be stupid.
Yeah.
That's a good way to approach it. I was going to say about the Clash, I'm thinking it was 83 or 84. I was the music critic for the St. Petersburg Times and got to see them at the Orlando, Florida High Life Fronton. And I remember going, and the crowd was scary, but I was kind of intimidated, to be honest. I was intimidated by the band. I think there was an opportunity to go around back and meet them and maybe talk to someone. It's been a long time. And I remember thinking, you know what? I haven't been doing this that long. I was actually intimidated to do it because the anger and the energy that they put out, it actually scared me. I wasn't really sure I was prepared to deal with it.
They were fierce. They were angry, but people should be angry. Things are not okay, and they should be angry. But
They should be really angry now.
They talked about it, but they didn't, hurt anybody. And it's too bad you didn't go backstage, because that's a good point. Because one thing I always admired about the Clash was that they were willing to talk to all their fans, and they were always open to it. A lot of bands have roadies and guards that keep people away. With the Clash, they instructed their guards to bring the fans back. Anybody from the audience who wanted to talk to the band was able to come backstage after the show and talk to them. And sometimes they had to wait 20 minutes for the band to dry off or argue about who did wrong in the set. And sometimes they had to wait an hour while the band had to do interviews or meet the record company. But whoever wanted to wait around got in to see the band. They were always open to it, and if they started to close up the venue, they'd bring the kids back to the hotel, and they'd stay up till 4 or 5 in the morning, not trying to just pick up the girls and take them to the room, but actually listening to the fans and talking to them. One thing I admired tremendously about Joe Strummer was that he didn't just talk to people like a pop star, but he listened to them. He had conversations with people, and that's what the Clash was all about.
Let me remind people, we're talking today to photographer Bob Gruen, who's got a new book out, a collection of his work. It's New York Dolls Photographs. Also on the line is the esteemed rock historian, Legs McNeil, the author. You're getting to that point where we have to...
Esteemed? I don't think I'm that esteemed. Bob, would you say I'm esteemed?
That means people have high regard and respect for you, which, yes, they do, and much to your surprise, I'm sure. But I travel around the world, and people talk about Legs like they're in awe of, what he...
Well, that's because they don't know me.
I know. When they meet you, it changes.
Well,
you must get a chuckle out of that, Bob.
Uh-huh.
If you want to know more about Legs, and you can search the Mr. Media archives at mrmedia.com, and you'll see an entire hour devoted to Legs. It was a great interview, and delighted that he was able to come back today and talk some more. And we're not done yet, but just in case people are just joining us live, Bob Gruen will have an exhibit of his photos starting on September 18th at the List Gallery, and he'll be there on September 18th at the List Gallery, 140 Yorkville Avenue in Toronto. And then from October 11th through November 2, Bob will have his first solo exhibition in Los Angeles at the Morrison Hotel Gallery, 7517 West Sunset Boulevard, near the Guitar Center, and he will be there to attend the opening on October 11th and sign copies of New York Doll's photographs, which I have in my hot little hands, it kind of feels like an autograph book. You know, it's got that touch to it, and
well, we wanted it to feel like a girl's diary, where it's a little softness, there's a puffiness to the cover, and it also makes the spandex stretch a little and feel good.
It's very cool.
Yeah, it's really it's really
fun.
It's so bright and pink. When you walk into a bookstore, you're going to see it right away and go, I want this.
Yeah.
What have you been shooting lately, Bob?
Oh, well, I'm always out every night. You can
he's out. You wouldn't believe, Bob's always like, hey, you want to, I got to go here, but we can have dinner at, like, I'll finish this thing, you know, I'll finish.
Yeah, Tuesday night was Elvis Costello and Jacob Dylan doing a taping for a TV show, a VH1 show that Elvis does. Recently, what was it, Wednesday night, I saw Perry Farrell at the John Bavaro's store where CBGB's used to be. They were having a party and Perry was playing. That's just this week. I'm always going somewhere. If you check out my website, I'm just about to update it again. In the next couple of days, I'll have another new page for the last couple of months. But, you know, and I do jobs. I like a band called the Sex Slaves here in New York. They're a very lively group that's very blunt about how much they enjoy sex. Connie Chan, my friend Jesse Mallon, I'm always taking pictures of him. He's a singer-songwriter, and Ryan Adams. I was supposed to see Oasis tonight, but they just canceled because poor Noel got thrown down on the stage. It really horrendous. Some fan ran on stage and smashed into him.
Oh.
But you know, it's not like I'm seeking new groups. I'm not a critic. I'm not trying to document the scene as much as I did in the 70s, where I was interested, you know, in always finding out what was new and what was happening. But now it's so big, and there's so many people that have been inspired by it, and so many kids that can record at home in their living room and put it out on their MySpace page, that I can't keep up with it, and I don't try to. I don't want to know every single band that's out there. My mind isn't big enough for all of that. But I'm always finding bands that I like, and like I said, I don't like TV. I don't like to stay home. I like to go out and see things for real.
Let me ask you about
when I do, I take pictures of it.
Let me ask you about the technical side of what you do, because I know we have live some photographers listening, and during the once this is archived at the end of the show, I know a lot of photographers will be interested to hear about this. What technically works best when you're shooting in a club, in a concert situation? What do photographers miss when they do that, if they don't do it that often?
Well, you know, everybody's got their own style, and they're all looking for different aspects and trying to capture different things. And the technical side of photography was never my forte. Actually, I've always had a lot of trouble with, you know, focusing the camera in time when I'm taking the picture, because I was more interested in the moment than the sharpness. And I like to say that, you know, although my pictures aren't always in focus, the feelings are clear, and I capture that. The kind of advice that I have for photographers, actually, is to take a lot of pictures. Because if you take a lot of pictures, you're bound to get a few good ones. And if you just show those few good ones, then people will think you're good. That really is the secret to success. It's just taking a lot of pictures and only showing the good ones. There's a lot to be said for good editing.
Legs, is he being a little modest here?
No, I think Bob's right. No, I mean, I've seen I'm over at Bob's house. He has file cabinets. He's got prints, you know, and you're always like, well, I have never seen this picture. This is great, you know. Bob has so many photographs because he shot so many rolls. He just shoot everything that, you know, you can find, you know, you can talk about some night and then Bob will pull up a photograph, you know. And it's like, oh, there's everybody, you know. It's kind of like seeing your childhood documented, you know.
But there's a picture of you getting your hair cut up at Toad's place.
Right, in the parking lot.
Joey the Barber was
by Joey the Barber. Yeah.
I take pictures of everything.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we've got a call coming in. Let's go to the caller. Hi, do you have a question for Bob Gruen or Legs McNeil?
Hi, this is I Got My Reasons calling from New York.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. I'm one of those annoying people that holds Legs in high esteem. I wanted to just say that, and I mean Bob's photographs obviously are brilliant as well. But I wanted to say your book, Please Kill Me, is probably the best music writing I've ever read. Probably one of the best books I've ever read, and it actually inspired me. I'm not a musician by background, but I love music. I'm more into the hip-hop scene and stuff like that, but I've always loved music, and the vivid description of Iggy Pop's creative process and the early stuff with them got me making my own music in GarageBand.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's really nice of you to say. You know, it's like that's really nice. I don't know what to say. Thank you.
No, it was really beautiful. I mean, because the whole do-it-yourself thing. I mean, I was in the punk scene early and all that stuff, but when I really got hands-on with it, I was kind of like, hey, I can just take some. I can take. I did a real band, this new band, Pistol Opera. I took their song, their single. I did a hip-hop remix, sent it to the band like fearlessly. Yeah. Just, hey guys, check this out. I remixed your song, and ever since then I've been doing stuff like that. I mean, I'm not doing it professionally or anything. I'm not really aspiring to, but the fact of the matter is I am doing it and I'm really enjoying it. So.
Well, I'll pass your flattering remarks on to my co-writer Jillian McCain.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks for calling.
Care.
I got.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, guys. He just so you know, he's been participating in the web chat that accompanies the show, and has been sending me messages. I was hoping he would call in directly, but Legs, he wanted to tell you that your book inspired him to make his own crappy music, as he put it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, so,
well, Legs, I should give you a minute.
No, well, let's talk about Bob.
Well, I love. Just 1 second.
What?
But do you have anything new coming up yourself that people?
Yes, I have the Joey. I Slept with Joey Ramone by Mickey Lee and Legs McNeil. It's the Mickey's memoir of growing up with Joey and them fighting on and off over the years, and the whole story of their relationship, which was kind of rocky, and Mickey was kind of the good, cute brother who was supposed to be the rock star, and Joey was kind of the messed up guy who couldn't do anything, and he became the rock star, and Mickey ended up getting busted for pot, and they had a kind of complete role reversal in their relationship, which is really kind of fascinating for these two guys, who were really, really tight when they were young, because they went through like 3 fathers, it's quite a good book, and we maintain Mickey's voice, and it's good. So that's what's coming out. It'll be out in the spring of 2009. Very good. See, we got to get the plug in. You're okay with that, aren't you, Bob?
Yeah. Oh, totally. I like Legs' books.
And Bob, let me ask you
to actually hear "Please Kill Me." We drove up to something up in Connecticut, and we got a reading by the author. Legs was sitting in the back of the car reading early excerpts, and my wife and I were just laughing hysterically. You got to get "Please Kill Me" if you don't have it already, because it is a laugh out loud book.
The great thing about "Please Kill Me" that we wanted to do was to inspire other people to write their scene. Here, you can do it. You can do it too. And I'm so glad that other people have done, like the L.A. scene. There's a book out called "We've Got the Neutron Bomb" that's done in there.
Right.
A lot of people have done oral history formats. Some not so, some better than others. But we just, you can go out and document it.
Well, and that's one thing you brought up that I wanted to say is an important point about the New York Dolls is the way they inspired everybody was by letting people know that they could do it.
Right.
That when you saw the New York Dolls, they were obviously untrained, but they were obviously playing well. They were playing lively music you could dance to, and they were obviously having fun. And Joe Strummer said that he was sitting in his aunt's living room, and he saw the Dolls on TV, and it was the first time he thought, wow, I could do that.
And Johnny Ramone said the same thing to me about
many musicians have told me that they saw the Dolls, and it, suddenly they thought they could do it too. Because before that, people had to be musicians. You had to practice. You had to learn how to play, and it looked like it was a job. And when the dolls got up there, it looked like they hadn't learned anything, but they were doing it and they were having fun.
And they had so much excitement. And I think even Joe Strummer says when he saw him on the old Gray Whistle Test, he said they were having fun. They looked like they were, having a gas of a time, and that inspired everybody. The enthusiasm,
and people wanted that, a job that they could do and they could have fun doing.
Yeah.
There's a great photo I want to point out in the book. It's page 99, and it's Jerry Nolan's right foot in high heels playing the snare, I guess.
Well, I like that shot because it points out that they didn't just dress up for a show, but he's in a recording studio. Playing the most...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's actually playing very important tracks that are going to be recorded. But he's wearing his high-heeled boots because those were his shoes. You didn't have other shoes. You didn't have 4 or 5 pairs. You had your boots, and that's what you wore. And they lived that lifestyle. They didn't dress up to be on stage, and it's like, oh, tonight we're going to look special for half an hour. They walked in special. They walked out special. They lived their life special, And that's why I like that shot, because it's just close-up of the boots on the drum kit, and it just shows you that's the way they lived it. That's the way they were.
Bob, we talked about your close, I think it's safe to say, close relationship you had with John Lennon, with the Dolls, the Clash you did the book on. Were there bands over the years that did not treat you as well as these guys did, that you wanted to work with or photograph, that just were, basically assholes?
Led Zeppelin.
Well, I wasn't a girl, so Led Zeppelin had very little to say to me. But yeah, that was one group that I just.
But what's funny about Led Zeppelin is Bob took one of the iconic pictures of them standing in front of their jet that says has all the Led Zeppelin logos on it, and it's a classic shot. And everyone asks Bob about Led Zeppelin, and you take it from there, Bob.
Oops, the truth.
Yeah.
I was never a fan. I meet a lot of people who grew up on Led Zeppelin, and it's part of their blood, and they love them almost more than the Beatles. But I didn't. They played in the dark. Their managers were gangsters, literally scary, violent gangsters. The band, like I say, I wasn't a girl, so they had nothing to say to me, so we didn't get to be friends. And it was always just a job, and a boring job. I mean, you'd go see their show, and then there'd be solo after solo. The guitar would go on forever, and then they'd start the bass solo, and then the drums. The guy would play drums for 45 minutes. I'd go out, I'd get a beer, I'd make some phone calls, I'd return a few phone calls, I'd go to the bathroom, I'd get another beer, I'd come back, he's still playing drums. And then the thing was, I don't complain, because at the end, the whole audience would applaud. And I would think, well, who am I to, judge? There are 20,000 people here are applauding at the end of the drum solo. I'm not a critic. They must have liked it.
Yeah.
It was only years later I mentioned to a friend of mine, and he said, of course they're applauding. He's finally quitting and then go back to the music. So I wasn't the only one.
Well, I'm with you on this entirely. Never been a Led Zeppelin fan.
And also Bob was
surprised. Like I said, that the news show, Robert Plant with Alison Krauss, was brilliant. And I wasn't expecting to like it, and I was blown away by how good it was.
But Bob was also a friend with someone who doesn't get a lot of attention these days, who was really influential, and that was Alice Cooper.
Oh.
Alice is a genius. Alice is the showman of showmen.
Yeah.
He put on the most incredible, exciting show. People were a little afraid of a man who had some eyeshadow and called himself Alice. But on stage, he was an incredible showman, and he did these things where he's like a bad guy and doing all these horrible things. At one point, he has a baby on a sword. But at the end of all of his shows, he's actually executed.
Yes, he's punished.
He's punished, and at the early days they used to hang him. So they had a couple of close calls where the equipment didn't work quite right, and then they would chop his head off in a guillotine.
An electric chair at one point.
Oh, the electric chair.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I'm going to jump in here. I'm sorry, I'm going to jump in because we're gonna lose the network in a minute.
Okay.
I want to thank both of you so much. Bob Gruen, Legs McNeil, for joining us. Let me get the plugs out here. Check out the latest book from Bob Gruen, New York Dolls, Photographs
by Bob Gruen.
Photographs. It's available at great bookstores everywhere, as well as Amazon.com and MrMedia.com. And you can visit his website, Bob Gruen, GRUEN.com. And Legs McNeil, everyone knows, Please Kill Me, The Other Hollywood, and you got another book coming in the spring. I hope we'll have you both back very soon. And thank you both so much for being on the show today.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Media.
Right. Good luck to both of you. I'll look forward to talking to you again very soon.
All right.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
So for dozens more celebrity and media newsmaker interviews, surf over to our main website, www.mrmedia.com. That's where you can listen to my conversations with the creators, stars, writers, and producers of The Cleaner, Star Wars, The Clone Wars, SpongeBob SquarePants, Heroes, Curb Your Enthusiasm, Army Wives, 24, The Big Bang Theory, Bad Santa, Tell Me You Love Me, The Dark Knight, Vitz, Baby Blues, and many others. And please think about writing an online review of Mr. Media, casting a vote, or marking Mr. Media as one of your favorites, whether you listen on Blog Talk Radio, digitaljournal.com, Podcast Pickle, Vox.com, Folio, Mediafly.com, Podfeed.net, Blueberry, Zencast, Odeo, Kindle, or iTunes. And yes, if you're a regular listener, you'll notice that list is getting longer and longer. Thank you for everything, really. If you've got an idea for a guest, email me directly at bob@andelman, ANDELMAN.com. Thanks so much for joining us today. I always appreciate it when you take some time out of your day to spend it with us. Come back real soon, everybody. Bye-bye.